Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel for Race Reflections number 2. Last week we looked at the Hubapalooza Enduro from 2020. This week we're looking at the downhill races. So there's 2 separate downhill races during Hubapalooza. Both of them in 2020 happened on the Sunday. This Enduro was on Saturday. Downhill races were on Sunday, kind of just back to back. If you're new to the channel or new to the series, if you didn't watch last week's video, Race Reflections series that I'm doing is mainly just to help myself look back at previous races and realize where I can and should improve in riding and racing, and then hopefully you're able to take something from each of the videos and help yourself, or at least be more aware. Maybe you're going into your first race and you just wonder, man, what kind of things do I need to focus on, think about when I head out for my first race. So if you haven't watched the last one, check it out. I've had a lot of good points for enduro racing. This week I'm going to look at the downhill side of things. Little bit of background coming into the Sunday races. Having had won the enduro on Saturday, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do well in the downhill races here on Sunday, and I did do well. I ended up winning the first one, the downhill one. Downhill 2, I ended up having a crash. So I'm going to focus a little bit more today on a couple of mental things. This is going to be a lot shorter than last week's video, and it'll be a little different than last time. Last time I focused a lot on form and on practical aspects of my racing lines, and today I'm going to talk a little bit more of why the mental side can play a factor, and yeah, so we'll see if it goes well. All right, getting into the video here. Downhill number 1.
10?
It's because of how proper my mustache is.
Yeah, you look like a firefighter. 4,
Joking around with timing, guys.
1, go!
This trail is artificial high to Hollywood, so we're on artificial high right now. And right away have a mess up. So this is my one major bobble on the trail, and I'm going to tell you why I think it was more of a mental bobble than a physical form bobble. So these 2 corners, this left and right before the race, I had talked a few people through the lines, and this left-hander, you know, I've very much told other people, make sure that you take this left-hander in a way that lets you set up nicely for that right-hander. And I think what I ended up doing was mentally focusing on not getting sent out wide into the inside of this right-hand corner, which, like I mentioned in the last video about object fixation, when you focus mentally on what you don't want to happen, on focusing on the negative, it's more likely that negative thing is going to happen, and vice versa. If you focus on the positive thing, it's more likely that the positive thing will happen. I think that I was so focused on don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, instead of do this, make sure that you do this, set up wide on this right-hander, or set up nicely on this left-hander so that you can get this right-hander correctly, that I ended up botching the 2 together, because I was focused on the negative outcome rather than the positive outcome. Focusing on positive outcomes is better for your riding. You can see I squared it. Ended up having to square it off and pedal quite a bit there. I honestly, in my head, when that happened, thought, well, there goes that. There's no chance now. But as we'll see, I'll put the times up again at the bottom. that wasn't the case. I did not get my GoPro angle correct for these two downhill races. Definitely a little bit too far down. I like to personally set up when I do helmet cam where the bottom of the screen is just barely seeing like this Bell logo here off my helmet. So that was the end of Artificial High. We're going into the top of Hollywood, or I think this section is called Hollywood. I'm not sure. There's so many trails that begin, it's so hard to know. I do hope this year that we end up with more spectators. In the past, this section is usually just littered with people screaming, hooting, and hollering. Didn't have that this year, or last year. So hopefully, in a couple weeks, we have that. Timing just went past the timer just a little bit back there. So yeah, I'll put the times up here, probably somewhere over here. And as you can see, it was really tight. There was, I think, 4 of us within the same second or so. But we did all get juniored. There were 2, I think it was 2 junior guys, Jake Taylor and someone from out of town, that cleaned house. They went fast. They put seconds on all of us, which was just awesome for them. That's very cool. But yeah, from reflecting on that race run, focus on what you want to happen, not on what you don't want to happen. A nice double negative for you. Yeah, let's move on to DH number 2.
5,
So now, I'll talk through the race run here a little bit. So now I've put a lot of pressure on myself to win all 3. You know, I've got 2 for 2 on the weekend, going for 3 for 3. I am just really driven now to try to get all 3. Which I think from watching the footage and seeing my times, I think this is the fastest I've ever ridden this section. I put pedal strokes in between that double and Girthmore there. It's pedaling hard through all of the flat sections. It's really feeling good on this upper bit. But didn't work out. So I crashed. I was really bummed. The reason I did go back and look, this was just one of those, like, trying to push the edge, and as you can kind of see, there's not really much of a berm here. It's just a tiny little catch, and when I went back, I had a solid, I think it was like 25 foot, just rear wheel broke the top end and just slid the whole way, and then I got spun over to the side. So that's the nature of downhill racing and trying to be on that very ragged edge, to, like we saw in the last race in the DH1, times are so tight that any little tiny advantage can make the difference, and I was trying for it. And that's what you get. So I don't think there was much to do with the crash. More what I want to talk about is how I mentally handled it afterwards. And so we'll finish the run here, and then I'm just going to speak on what I let it do to me mentally afterwards. So got back up and was fine. Oh man, are you kidding me? My camera ran out of battery. Sorry, I had to change the batteries in my camera. So yeah, I don't think I really made any true mistakes. I was just pushing the limits, and sometimes you find it and you go a little bit past it, and that's exactly what I did. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to talk more after we finish the race run here as to how I let it affect me post race. So here's the crash again. Just laid it down. No real issues. You know, I was actually wearing the new G-form E-line pads on the knees and had the elbow pads on, and came out with, I don't even know if I really ended up with any road rash or scrapes at all, which was nice. They stayed in place and I got right back up. Didn't have to readjust them, which was good. Coming into the bottom. Again, so much fewer people here than normal.
I crashed.
You can hear my disappointment. So yeah, so that was the race run. I'll put the times up here. I still did okay, but yeah, hard to know if I would have been able to beat Miles. Miles had a great run, and yeah, I would think it would have been really close. But what I really ended up mentally doing was I had put so much pressure on myself to get all 3 wins, especially after having gotten the first 2, that I was super excited to try to get all 3. And then when I crashed on such kind of like an unforced error type of a situation, I really let it eat at me the rest of the day rather than move on and be excited about the other 2 wins, and just being excited to race. I mean, this would have been my third weekend of racing of the year, and it's August. Like, a lot fewer races because of the COVID, and you know, rather than just being happy for being at the event and for being a part of it, I was kind of angry and really didn't just look at the positives. I was focusing on the negatives again. Kind of similar to mentally the whole thinking of what you don't want to happen kind of thing that I just talked about on race run 1. I was focusing on the negative here after my race run rather than just looking at the positive of, I crashed and I was completely okay. There was no issues. I wasn't scraped up. I didn't have to go to the hospital. I didn't break anything on my bike. There was no issues there. It was still fun. I mean, it was still a great race. But I let it eat at me, and it took away a lot of that enjoyment from the race weekend. I mean, we're out there to have fun. That's the whole point of racing bikes. You know, I'm not getting paid to race bikes. There's winning that race didn't make a difference in my paycheck, and nothing. It wouldn't have made a difference. I'd be right where I am today, regardless, win or lose on that race. So to let it eat at me so negatively and take away from such a fun experience was really a bummer for myself and for the people around me, instead of being happy and excited for the people who did do well and have clean runs and they were all happy. I was kind of a Debbie Downer and in my own head. So, no matter how your race run goes, just remember we're out here to have fun. We're out here to enjoy the outdoors and the company of fellow mountain bikers and spectators and frolfers who just happen to stop by and watch. We're just out having a good time. So don't let little bobbles in your race run throw you off. Life goes on. Just have fun. That's Race Reflections 2. Focus on the positives and have fun. That's really what we're That's the takeaways from today. Nothing too crazy. Hopefully next week we will have the courses up for this year's Hubapalooza, for 2021 Hubapalooza. Keep an eye out for those. I don't know what day they're going to come out specifically, but hopefully sometime in the next week that the courses should be announced and we should have course previews up. So keep an eye out for those. Like and subscribe to get the notifications for that. As always, if you ever want to go out for a private coaching session, or I also have some group classes for the weekend prior to Hubapalooza on the 10th and the 11th. If you're interested in any of those, check out my Facebook page, Nar Mountain Bike Coaching, and shoot me a message. I'll put you on the list, or if you got a group of buddies that wants to focus on something really, really specific, or you just got a group of buddies that just wants it to be the group of buddies, hit me up. We'll set up a day and time. We can do some coaching there. And yeah, otherwise, if you're coming to Hubapalooza, stop by, say hi, and have fun. Focus on the positives. Have a good week. Bye. Editing this one is going to be way harder because that was a mess.